Hello and welcome to my presentation on the Reflective-Reflexive Educator. My name is Dr. Lisset Pickens, and I will be presenting to you some research on what being a reflective-reflexive practitioner in the field of education entails. I will explore the benefits of this model and dive into some more information surrounding the actual practices. So, reflective, reflexive practice is needed in order to ignite and sustain the journey of lifelong learning. As educators, when we get into our field, we take an oath not only to impact the lives of our students, but we take this incredible journey of being lifelong learners. And that is at the core of what it means to be reflective and reflexive in practice. The more educators are able to reflect on their thought processes, their beliefs, biases, actions, the more they're able to grow and develop their overall character, which ultimately defines who they are as individuals and inevitably who they are as educators within the field. I have a great amount of experience in the field of education, but I am definitely not unseen to the fact that my experiences alone do not lead to my growth. Reflecting on those experiences and being reflexive in my actions makes the learning more meaningful and thus it makes it more applicable to the work that we do. The primary benefit of being reflective and reflexive in practice is that the teacher is able to gain a much deeper understanding of self. And with this understanding of self, we also dive into an understanding of ourselves as professionals within the field of education. So we explore our teaching styles, we look at our connections that we have with our students, we look at the connections we have with their families, and there's an overall greater effectiveness as a teacher. There's also heightened job satisfaction that should come as a result of this practice. So, reflexive practice for this reason is the action part of this model. It is putting those reflective thoughts into actual practice. It is the action of this model. So the educator, hopefully in turn, will be more socially aware. They will be more definitely possess more heightened self-awareness, and as they will establish a more considerable um, benefits to effectively teach and reach the learners in their classes. So that is in essence what I will be exploring in this presentation is the reflective reflexive educator. Thank you. Now let's take a look at this word reflection and dive into what this truly means and what it entails. Well, the great American educator John Dewey has maintained that reflection encompasses three major components. The first of these components involves a process, which is a systematic way of thinking, and an end product or meaning making. The second component of reflection includes a specific reflective disposition composed of three main attitudes, namely open mindedness, wholeheartedness, and responsibility. Dewey noted that these dispositions are not passive attitudes, but a desire to actively consider multiple viewpoints of all people concerned. And then the third component is that any real reflective thinking involves some kind of language and communication, which is best accomplished in the company of others. An important point to note here as well is that, above all, Dewey considered reflection a form of freedom from routine. Reflection encompasses so many different things for so many different people, but it definitely is a break from the routine. It's a time to think and ponder on our various experiences. Reflective action, as Dewey suggests here, entails active, persistent, and careful consideration of any belief or supposed form of knowledge in the light of the grounds that support it and the further conclusions to which it leads. So there is a long-standing recognition in this field, and teachers must continually shape and reshape their knowledge of teaching and learning throughout their careers. A non-negotiable. It's inevitable. Much of the teacher's early knowledge we find is developed initially in, of course, teacher education programs, and then through teaching experiences and reflections throughout their career. Richards and Farrell suggests that reflection can be understood as the process of critical examination of experiences, a process that can lead to a better understanding of one's practices and routines. And hence, here, the reason why it is suggested that perhaps having this routine reflection in place can make a significant difference in the overall efficiency and effectiveness of instruction, as well as a heightened appreciation of one's position. Most educators agree that reflective practice is a desirable thing. In fact, it has been noted that there is not a single teacher educator who would say that he or she is not concerned about preparing teachers who are reflective. So, in essence, the benefits of being reflective in practice have been substantiated. It is very evident. But what we're doing with that reflection, I have found to be the missing link in ensuring that we continue on this road to ensuring effectiveness within the classroom as it pertains to instruction and as it also pertains to our growth as educators. Okay, let's take a look at reflexive practice. Reflexive practice is situated within the sociological concepts of reflexivity as described by Giddens. It is engagement in reflexive practice that has the potential to further engage students in all aspects of learning. And as Biggs notes, reflection in a mirror is an exact replica of what is in front of it. However, in reflection, when we consider our professional practice, it gives back not what it is, but what might be, which could very well be an improvement on the originality. And as noted previously, reflexive practice is really needed in the whole approach on being reflective. The reflexive practice portion of that approach is the action that is needed. So as we make an assessment of ourselves through reflecting on various experiences, we then create this plan of action for how we're going to address areas in which we may want to make changes. We may need some enrichment, some more resources. But regardless of what we decide, the action in itself is what contributes to being reflexive in practice. As we look at the problem that has been identified, we may ask ourselves, so how does one cultivate such a reflective disposition? Well, as Dewey pointed out, there is a duality attached to reflection. Yes, it is cognitive in every sense of the word, but a reflective disposition must also be accompanied by a set of three essential attitudes that must be cultivated to engage in reflective inquiry. These are namely open-mindedness, wholeheartedness, and responsibility. He also noted that all three of these attitudes are not only important in order that the habit of thinking in a reflective way may be developed, but are traits of personal character that have to be cultivated. I will discuss these three essential attitudes in some detail in terms of their implications for improved student centered approaches to teaching and learning and heightened overall teacher job satisfaction. The problem to be addressed in this study involves taking a look at teacher job satisfaction as well as the teacher's ability to utilize learner centered strategies with students during instruction. So the question is, this weekly journaling, which is reflecting, and pair share time discussions, which is the reflexive practice, positively impact job satisfaction and impact the usage of learner centered approaches to instruction. Expert teachers are found to have adjusted their thinking to accommodate the level of reflection that various decisions on a daily basis require. Their teaching is characterized by an intentional competence that enables them to identify and replicate best practices, refine that practice, and avoid inferior practices. So, because of their ability to reflect, great teachers know not only what to do, but they're also knowledgeable about why they must make these decisions. Well, why does this matter? In the field of teaching, Brookfield characterizes critical reflection as a stance and dance. The critically reflective teacher's stance towards teaching is one of inquiry and being open to further investigation. The dance involves experimentation and risk towards modifying practice while moving to fluctuating and possibly contradictory rhythms. So the teacher then takes this dance in trying to find ways to meet the various needs of not only the students, but even in reflecting, finding ways to put that plan of action into practice. And sometimes this can definitely be trial and error. But it matters because we want to ensure that teachers are equipped to effectively assess situations, assess their own thinking, and use the best solutions possible. So it does matter that teachers are able to be reflective and also to be reflexive in practice. What we hope to attain is improved learner success as well as improved teacher job satisfaction as a result of the teacher's ability to be reflective and reflexive in practice. Within the field of education, a sound understanding of reflection and unwavering practice in its principles are essential to serving as highly effective educators. These are just some of the many benefits that can be outlined to highlight the importance of critical reflection. Next, we will dive in to a look at the research and how it will address the problem. Monitoring our thoughts and actions leads us to a more profound understanding of who we are as individuals and inevitably who we are as educators. So, my research plan is designed to maximize on the benefits of reflection and to maximize on the benefits of educators being reflexive in practice. My goal is to randomly select 20 teachers to participate in this study, 10 of whom will be novice teachers entering the field of education between the first year and the third year, and 10 veteran teachers who have been in the field of education 5 or more years. Teachers will then receive a questionnaire, and this questionnaire will ask questions related to their current level of reflecting, both personally and professionally. Teachers will also complete the instrument, the Teacher Motivation and Job Satisfaction Survey. As we move into the study, these teachers will be asked to journal. And in journaling, they will reflect on their ability to be open minded, wholehearted, and their sense of responsibility. This study would run the course of a 6-week period with teachers reflecting daily, and on the last day of every week for those 6 weeks, they will engage in a sharing exercise where they will be randomly paired with another teacher, and they will discuss these 3 main points and the highlights throughout the week. Teachers will then, at the end of the study, will repeat the instrument that was provided prior to the study. So they will again take the Teacher Motivation and Job Satisfaction Survey. And they will also be asked questions, again, related to their current level of reflecting, both personally and professionally. Their results will be recorded, the instruments will be collected, and the data will then be reviewed to see if there are any gains and improvements across these various areas. In terms of utilizing more learner-centered practices, they will complete a checklist that outlines a list of 10 different learner-centered strategies, and they will track how often they utilize these strategies throughout the 6-week period. This will also be reviewed and included as part of the data. Potential impact of my research. This research can potentially establish a new practice to promote learner-centered approaches as well as foster improved overall job satisfaction. Who we are and how we are with our students really does matter, and it directly impacts the ability for students to be successful. We need to reflect on where our realities about the teaching and learning process has originated. How are these realities developed, transformed, and informed as well? Then we need to further question how our own realities, our own culture, assumptions, biases, all of the above prevent us from getting to a certain place in our reflection. This can serve as a process that helps to elevate us to a level where we can truly be in tune with our students and the families that we serve. It can also directly help us to deliver more effective practice as it pertains to instruction. Next steps. As a result of the study, there are some opportunities for further expansion, and that would be to expand the scope of the study by including more participants. As well, further defining the learner-centered approaches that are identified in this study. Finally, consider implementation of this study at a rural and an urban school setting to account for differences in outcomes. The results of the study will significantly assist colleges and universities in teacher preparation programs to better outline coursework that focuses also on developing the reflective and reflexive teacher. With this focus, teachers entering the field will be more readily equipped to meet the demands of the 21st century classrooms. This study can also potentially impact those already in the field of education by being a significant component in the professional learning that is offered throughout the school year. The ability to reflect upon one's thinking, the ability to then put a plan into action with all significantly impact the overall job satisfaction of teachers, as well as empower them to more readily select learner-centered approaches to instruction. This brings me to the conclusion of my presentation, and Thank you so much for listening and for viewing.